Speaking of Venom, I finally took the opportunity to go out last night. Me and Ray went out and checked out Venom last night as it opened in AMC theaters. I went to go check it out. I've been telling you guys, Sony has been hiding this film. Sony had no belief that the critics were going to like this thing. Turns out they were right. The critics have not been favorable to it. The last I checked, Venom came in at a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it started off around 24 and then climbed up to 30. As a matter of fact, give me 1 second here. Let me see where it's at real time right now. Right now, Venom on Rotten Tomatoes is rocking and it's still holding steady at 30%. So only about 1 out of every 3 critics went to go see it. I told you guys, if Sony doesn't have any belief in this film, why should I? So I lost all my faith in the movie. I went to go see it last night. I'm sorry. It's actually not bad. It's actually not bad. Let me start by telling you one of my biggest complaints about the movie. And I was like, I don't have a watch, but I instinctively felt myself wanting to look at a watch. This movie goes too long before Venom actually gets introduced. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I went into this movie looking for Venom to blah, right there, right off the beginning of the movie. It's just Venom, like doing all of his scary stuff. I wasn't looking for that. But I felt like we got a good 20, 25 minutes into the movie before the symbiote and Eddie actually came into contact with each other. And it felt long. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying there wasn't anything half decent in that first act of the film. There was. We got to know Eddie a little bit. We got to understand his relationship with Michelle Williams. We got to understand the premise of the Life Foundation, what was going on, where the symbiotes came from. They established some pretty good work in the first act. But unfortunately, they just dragged out far too long when we actually got Eddie and the symbiote together. And it felt long. And it made it feel like it was dragging. And I, as an audience member, and I think a lot of other people who were there last night as well, started getting impatient with the film, right? Just started getting impatient with the film. And, you know, it's like a romance movie when the lead guy and the lead girl are looking at each other this close face to face and you're waiting for them to kiss, but they just sit there staring at each other for 7 minutes. It's like, are we going to get on with this or like move along? That's what I felt like watching Venom. So that was the biggest piece of frustration for me. But I'm going to tell you what. Let me echo what a lot of other people, even people who don't like this movie, are saying. The Venom and Eddie relationship and dynamic is dynamite. It works great. All the best moments about this film are the interactions and the dynamic. And I'm going to tell you what, here's a word you didn't expect to hear mentioned when talking about Venom. The evolution of the relationship, the development of the relationship, the progression of the dynamic between the symbiote, Venom, and of course, Eddie Brock. It's great. It really is. There is some solid character work being done there. And I had no expectation of that going into a movie called Venom. But there's actual character work that happens between these two characters merging into one entity, right? The conversations between them I thought were hilarious. I thought, look, you could have gone really dark and violent. And believe me, there's a big body count in this movie. A lot of people were nervous. Oh, there's not going to be any violence because it's not rated R. Big body count. Big body count in Venom. Lots of bodies dropping all over the place. So it's plenty violent. But I think a lot of people some people just wanted something really dark and evil and whatever. And that's fine. That's no problem. You can make movies like that and they'd be fantastic. But I'm telling you what they did here was great. Now, I'm not going to give away anything, but you see a lot of people online talking about the pussy line. And some people complaining about whatever. I'm telling you what, the entire theater I was in last night when that line got dropped, and I won't tell you where it drops, but the whole audience was laughing their asses off when I was there last night. That is a prime element for me that really worked for the movie. Not everything worked on that level, not at all. But the Eddie Venom stuff was great. Also, the action was really solid. You know, the Sony released that one clip of Venom taking out like the 20 armed soldiers. It plays out just as well on the big screen, if not better than it did in the clip. It worked really well. It was exciting. It was visceral. It was like a lot of moments going like, ugh, like you saw in the clip, right, where he takes the one guy by the foot and he just basically uses him as a weapon, smashing him out. Yeah, that dude's dead. That dude's dead. And Venom does eat a number of people in the movie, so don't worry, Venom does eat people. But I'm not going to tell you when or where the circumstances, but you saw in the trailer that he was going to eat some people. I'm just telling you what, the action was actually quite good. If there is a big area of weakness besides the dragging of that opening first act, that if I was the type of guy that I didn't have any problems getting up and walking out of movies, I almost would have walked out of the first act of Venom. I'm glad that I didn't, but I may have. But besides that, I don't think they did enough with the Riz Ahmed character. Now, of course, Riz Ahmed plays the big villain in the film. They did not give us, whereas we had development with Venom and development with Eddie and even development with Michelle Williams' character, we really didn't get any of that with Riz Ahmed. Like from the moment you see him, I'm evil. And from the last shot that he's in the movie, I'm evil. I mean, there's just that. Remember the old Spider-Man movies, right? The villains always had progression. They started off in one place, they ended off in another, whether it was Doc Ock or whether it was Goblin or whether it was anybody. They gave character development to the villains. They did not do that in Venom. And that to me is one of the big glaring weaknesses other than the dragging of the first act. So to me, that was one of the other big glaring weaknesses. I'll also say this. There's no big moment in Venom that you walk out of the theaters going, wow. Like, you know how this is just using a little bit of hyperbole to make the point. But, you know, you got Avengers Infinity War, the dusting, the snap, right? There's that moment. In the first Avengers, there's a few of them, but like Hulk going, like grabbing Loki and smashing him all over the place. There's that moment. Logan has one or two of those moments. A lot of the great Dark Knight has one or two of those moments. There was no big moment, you know, in Venom that kind of becomes a defining moment that you can walk away from and always think about and go over and replay in your head a few times. There's no moment like that that really stands out as super exceptional. I'll also say this. There are two post-credit scenes, all right? Two post-credit things. One mid-credits, one at the end. I've heard a lot of people talking about how amazing the mid-credit scene is. I've seen a lot of people online, even critics who don't like Venom, online saying, yeah, Venom's not so good. Oh, but the mid-credit scene is great. I'll be honest with you, I was completely underwhelmed with the mid-credit scene. Completely underwhelmed with it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It had potential. It gave you a couple of pieces of a puzzle that could have been pretty cool. But at the end of it, I'm like, that's what everybody was getting excited about? Seriously? That's what everybody was getting all... Anyway, I just thought it was kind of a waste. To me, the winning post-credit stuff was the stuff at the very end of the credits. And again, I won't give anything away, but stick around to the very end of the credits. I think you'll be happy if you do that. Look, overall, Venom's just not that bad. I actually walked out, and you know, it was one of those situations, this will differ from audience to audience. I'm sure some audiences moaned out loud when they watched Venom. But I'm just saying, the audience I was sitting with last night, 5 p.m. at the AMC Burbank 16, there was a big round of applause when the credits started to roll. And I'm sure your theater may have been different. I'm not saying anything otherwise. But, you know, Ray and I walked out and we went, you know what? That wasn't bad. Not my top 3 comic book movies of the year. Nothing I'm going to be recommending to people to run out and see. So I came out of Venom and I tweeted out, if you guys follow me on Twitter, and if not, why not? Follow me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. But I tweeted out, Venom is not awful. It actually had more upside than I was expecting. And I was expecting, after putting out that tweet, to get this avalanche of negative tweets from people saying, what are you talking about, Campea? This movie was awful. But honestly, I got about, I think about 300 responses, and I think about 290 of them were like, yeah, me too. I saw the movie. I kind of liked it. Or some people saying they loved it. Not a lot of people saying they loved it, but some people saying they loved it. I didn't love it, but a lot of people going, yeah, I was thinking it was going to be trash and it was pretty good. Look, I'm not telling you guys to rush out and watch Venom. I didn't like it that much, so I'm not telling you to rush out and watch Venom. And I'm not saying any critic out there who didn't like it is crazy. Nope, I'm not saying that at all. I recognize there's downsides to this. I recognize the problems in this, and those problems may have affected them a little bit differently than it affected me. All I'm telling you is, as a guy who lost all faith in this movie, and maybe my lowered expectations has something to do with this, but as a guy who lost all faith in this movie, I walked out of Venom going, you know what? It's worth watching. It's a movie that's worth watching. A Star is Born is clearly the best movie opening this weekend, but if you're going to go see 2 movies this weekend, I'm going to tell you, I don't think you're wasting your time going to see Venom. I was expecting it to be trash, all this kind of stuff. Sure enough, a lot of the critics don't like it. Sure enough, I'm sure a lot of the audience doesn't like it either. Totally get it. But for me, not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Anyway, have you guys had a chance to see Venom yet? If so, what are your thoughts? Jump down in the comments section below and let me know what you guys are thinking about it.